Mic check.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
All right. Welcome back, Wolfpack. I am Fox Trevize here for our day 3. Well, the first little bit of day 3 anyways, and the last bit of day 2. Recap on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I suffered moments ago a tragic dental emergency in which a permanent crown on my back molar fell out while eating a piece of cheese prior to streaming. I am not currently in pain. However, I anticipate being in excruciating pain later tonight. And my my normally sultry, unbearable to listen to tones might be a little slurred tonight, as the inside of my mouth now has a different shape than it did yesterday. But luckily, I don't have a large update for you tonight. The last 2 nights were about 2.5 hours, pretty long updates. Tonight is substantially shorter due to me actually having to do work for the company that I work for today and not having as much time to listen to the trial. So let's jump right into it. I do... Actually, this is probably up a little bit early, but we're going to come back to Jack Posobiec here. So, day 2, as you guys know, we are reviewing the Kyle Rittenhouse case. There's been the last 2 days. If you want to know more information about that, you can see the previous 2 episodes where I cover the first few days of the trial. Last night, I said that I stopped off on day 2 around 4 p.m. Eastern yesterday so that I could pick up for the stream at about 5 p.m. Eastern yesterday. And then this morning, I recapped on the stuff that we had missed yesterday. So day 2 continued. We pick back up where we left off yesterday with Detective Howard Martin being... Let's see here. Who is talking to him? He is being spoken to by the state prosecutor. So just some general overview on the case, and the other commentators reviewing the case, and I seem to be in agreement that the case against Kyle Rittenhouse is, I wouldn't say that it's completely fallen apart. I would say that to fall apart, there had to be a case there to begin with, which we'll get into some specific elements that the state is trying to prosecute Kyle on that were specifically countermanded today. Again, the key charges, although there is 6 of them, the key charges against Kyle are 2 counts of homicide. And Kyle is attempting to defend himself by saying that he has privilege of self-defense. So for the state, because Kyle's presumed innocent, the state has to prove that Kyle was not in fear for his life at the time of the self-defense shootings. The state has to prove that the people Kyle shot were no threat to him and were not acting in a threatening manner against him, which is patently absurd if you've watched any of the video prior to the trial, and especially the video during the trial, which we've seen new video now. The state had no case to begin with, so I don't really see how it could have collapsed if there was nothing there to begin with, though other commentators are describing the state's case against Kyle as, quote, collapsing. So I picked back up. I watched it this morning. This happened yesterday, so the continuing from about 5 p.m. Eastern yesterday on, that would have been November 3rd, I believe. Let me see here. Yes, so we pick back up at about 5 p.m. Eastern on November 3rd with the last half of the day 2 of the trial. So we pick back up with Detective Martin. He's being questioned by the state prosecutor. They play a video from the FBI sky infrared view. So we've heard of this new video that's been, which is, you guys are seeing a screenshot of it up on the screen right now. There was a new video that the public had not seen prior to the trial that the FBI apparently had a Overwatch fixed-wing aircraft with an infrared camera watching over the riots on night 3 when Kyle's incident occurred. Now, I thought about this much later in the day, not when I was writing these notes. I'm gonna hop off my notes here for a second. But I was struck with the thought, why did the FBI have a fixed-wing aircraft surveying a riot with an infrared camera? And then I thought to myself, are there other riots that the FBI has overhead infrared surveillance of? What are they doing with that footage? Why have we not seen that used to prosecute other rioters and looters? Surely all of that aerial footage, and I'm guessing, why am I guessing that they're at other places? Well, because Kenosha, while it was a particularly bad riot, wasn't a particularly big city. And so my thought is that, well, the FBI sent a plane there to do Overwatch and infrared. The plane was flying at about 9,000 feet, so not the highest, not the lowest. My thought is that the FBI did that for Kenosha because it was a normal thing for them to do that summer. My guess is that there's probably hundreds to thousands of hours of other riots in other cities all summer long that the FBI has been sitting on that they took from their airplanes. And I think that needs to be investigated, probably by Congress. Certainly the question needs to be asked because that is some interesting footage especially for other riots, if that exists. There's also kind of a side narrative here. Actually, back to Jack Posobiec here. Jack Posobiec broke last, I think it was 2 nights ago, that he was able to acquire the full length HD footage of the FBI overhead surveillance, or the aerial surveillance, even though the FBI only provided a very short, low-resolution clip to the defense. And why? Because why would the FBI hold that footage back? Well, because the FBI is completely untrustworthy, but also because this footage shows very clearly that Rosenbaum was chasing Kyle and that Kyle's life was in danger from being chased by a pedophile. this footage shows that. So instead of providing them the full-length clip, the full resolution, the whole full HD image, the FBI says that they quote-unquote lost the original HD footage. So again, this is kind of a side story that's occurring outside of court right now. Though Jack Posobiec is hot on the trail investigating what happened, and he was able to retrieve a much longer version of the clip and make it public because the FBI was refusing to make this footage public except for the clip that they provided for the trial, which should not be allowed. All right, so they play this video from the aerial overview for Detective Martin. Again, Detective Martin, as we learned yesterday, we did the first part of his testimony yesterday. Detective Martin is a detective for the city of Kenosha. He was assigned as one of two primary detectives on the Rittenhouse self-defense shooting case. There's actually some interesting information coming out about the detectives, which I might talk about later, or I might talk about on another day. But basically, the long and short story of it is that the other detective on the Rittenhouse case shares a last name with the mayor of Kenosha and the prosecutor, the city prosecutor for the city of Kenosha. So you've got the lead detective, the mayor, and the city prosecutor all have the exact same last name, and they're all going after Kyle. That's a little weird, which is actually going to come up as to some of the weirdness that went on with Kyle in the initial days after this incident, which we're going to get into today. So they play the video. This, again, state prosecutor talking to Detective Howard. They play this video from the FBI infrared sky view. The video shows Kyle running past Rosenbaum, which we're going to watch it at the end of the show tonight. Again, this probably only be about an hour or maybe a half hour if my tooth hurts. But we'll finish with watching this video here that I'm talking about right now, but we'll watch it later. But you'll be able to see Kyle just runs past Rosenbaum, even though the state had said, oh, Kyle is chasing Rosenbaum. Well, as we've talked about previous nights, it's kind of hard to chase somebody if you're in front of them and also not following them. After Kyle runs past Rosenbaum, Rosenbaum then begins chasing him across the parking lot, which, again, you'll see when we watch the full video. I would say probably 30 to 40 feet that Kyle runs and is being pursued by Rosenbaum. And Kyle getting chased across an entire parking lot by a pedophile. The state prosecutor characterized that as Kyle chasing Rosenbaum, which, again, I don't know how you chase somebody if you're in front of them and they're pursuing you across the whole parking lot. Let's see here. So after that, the state rests for a second, and Kyle's defense attorney starts cross-examining Detective Martin. Basically, they just go through a quick recap of all the basic facts that we all already know. They discuss, again, this is Kyle's defense attorney talking to Detective Martin. They discuss that a large part of the investigation dealt with downloading cell phones of various witnesses that were in and around the area that night and during that incident. And Kyle's attorney talks to Detective Martin about that process, and basically after they would hold somebody, a witness, the detective would either get consent to download all of the information off of a witness's phone, or they would get an agreement via a warrant. And either way, if the detective for the city of Kenosha wanted your phone, he was going to get your phone. There really wasn't an option. It was either the easy way or the hard way, but if he wanted to download your phone that night and you were a witness, he was going to get it, which is interesting. We'll come back to that in a second. Like I said, as was characterized by both Detective Martin and Kyle's lawyer, if Detective Martin wanted to have your phone, he got your phone. That was it. Let's see here. So they discussed that Kyle's cell phone was at the time the latest version of iOS. There was a funny exchange where the term iOS was needed to be defined for the jury and the attorneys. At the time that this happened in August of 2020, there was no of publicly or privately available tools to crack the latest version of iOS. You had to have either the passcode or a fingerprint or a face print to get into that iOS version. There was no available tools to crack the phone at that time. Kenosha sent Kyle's phone to the FBI to see if the FBI could crack it with additional tools. The FBI was unable to crack open the phone and sent it back to the city of Kenosha, whereupon Detective Martin was part of making a deal with Kyle that if Kyle would unlock his phone so that they could get a copy of all the information that was on Kyle's phone, that Kyle would do that if Kyle's defense team could also have a copy of that data to be used as evidence. So basically, there would have been information that the defense thought that there was information on Kyle's phone that would be helpful to Kyle. The state prosecutor thought there'd be information that would be damning to Kyle. They decided we'll have Kyle open the phone and we'll both get to take a crack at this data and see what we can find. So again, setting up the narrative. The Kyle's defense attorney is very good at setting up narratives here. So setting up the narrative that if Detective Martin wanted your phone, he could get in your phone. He wanted to get into Kyle's phone. Ultimately, he got into Kyle's phone. That brings us to Gage. Gage, who is the disarmed guy that I love to bring up because he was disarmed. So Gage had a phone. The state prosecutor tried to characterize Gage in the moment of him trying to shoot Kyle as holding a cell phone and omitting that he was also holding a Glock in the other hand and trying to shoot Kyle in the head with it. But either way, it's well-established fact that Gage was holding a cell phone at the time that he was disarmed. So the Kyle's defense attorney brings up, hey, public record shows there was a search warrant for Gage's cell phone. Detective Martin, were you able to get a copy of Gage's cell phone? To which the Detective Martin replied, no, which is interesting. Basically what happened was there was a search warrant issued by the city to get a copy of Gage's cell phone. Detective Martin personally chose not to execute on that search warrant, even though he at one point in time while interviewing Gage, Gage was in the room, Gage's cell phone was in the room, and Detective Martin had the search warrant. He could have very easily said, okay, now hand me over your cell phone, here's the warrant, you don't have a choice. And as we've already established, if Detective Martin wanted your cell phone, he got your cell phone. For some reason, which there was some reasons given, they're really not important because they're kind of BS, and we're going to go through why they're BS. They're making up reasons to kind of throw the case for Kyle and to kind of destroy or accidentally lose any evidence that might be helpful to Kyle. That's why perhaps the FBI just lost. They don't know where it went. They just lost the HD footage of the overhead view that clearly exonerates Kyle as having acted in self-defense. And similarly, Detective Martin just didn't feel like getting Gage's phone, which we're going to go through what's on Gage's phone, but there's definitely stuff on Gage's phone that would be exonerating to Kyle. But for some reason, Detective Martin just didn't feel like, he could have gotten anybody's phone that he wants. He even got Kyle's phone. Even though iOS is uncrackable, he got that phone because he wanted it. For some reason, Detective Martin did not want Gage's phone. Why did Detective Martin not want Gage's phone? Well, there's two reasons. Per media reporting, at the time, we knew this way before the trial, there was some reports that Gage had, who again, he survived his disarming. There was media report that Gage had texted a friend from the hospital that his only regret was that he hadn't killed Kyle. And so, now this was never confirmed, but it was widely reported that Gage from the hospital had texted a friend, I wish I had killed Kyle. That would have gone a long way to being a contemporaneous statement where it would prove that Gage had killer intent when he approached Kyle, and that would have exonerated Kyle by obviously confirming that Kyle was acting in self-defense. Let's see here. There's also highly likely that there is video on Gage's phone, because as the state prosecutor mentioned, hold on a second. As the state prosecutor mentioned, Gage was holding up a phone. And they weren't so mentioning of the Glock that he was also holding up, but we do know it's well-established case fact that Gage was holding up a cell phone. Why do you hold up cell phones? Well, why was everybody else holding up cell phones that night? Because they were taking video. Is it possible that Gage, maybe Gage was, the old Verizon commercials. He was looking for bars. I don't know. Maybe he was looking for bars at the same time he was lining a scope up on Kyle's skull. More likely, Gage was filming, as many people were that night, and likely, along with the text messages that he sent from the hospital, again, if we got the download from the phone, we'd be able to confirm for sure, did Gage send a text message that said that he intended to kill Kyle? If we could confirm that with evidence from Gage's phone, well, then that's immediately, that charge is dropped. Like, that's just immediately, Kyle's not guilty of that. Additionally, any video that Gage might have taken probably would have had contemporaneous statements, and contemporaneous means like at the time. During the recording, Gage probably was saying things or voicing over his thoughts and feelings and observations at the time. And so possibly, we don't know what was on there. It's possible that there's videos of Gage on there discussing his intent, what he thought about certain things, what he thought about Kyle perhaps, or what he thought about what had just happened to Rosenbaum. Maybe he would have whispered to the camera. Maybe he was live streaming or intending to upload the video later. Maybe he was whispering his commentary like, oh, I'm going to go get that bastard. We don't know, but it's possible. It's entirely possible that there was information on that cell phone that would have exonerated Kyle. And for whatever reason, Detective I will get any phone I want Martin decided that Gage's phone was one of the ones he did not want. You think about that. Again, there's another side story building. Like I said, there's the other detective on the case shares a last name with the mayor and shares a last name with the city prosecutor, or the city attorney. There is I'm not going to call it a conspiracy because it seems to be evident at this point, but there's a growing narrative and body of evidence that the city of Kenosha is intentionally losing or misplacing or not doing things in a regular manner as to make it as difficult as possible on Kyle to prove make it as easy on the state to prove that Kyle is guilty. Kyle doesn't have to prove his innocence. He is innocent. That's how our system works. The state has to prove him guilty and change his status. But the city appears to have done some underhanded tactics and some irregular procedures to ensure that things that would help Kyle were not collected as evidence. Let's see here. There was some new information that was confirmed today. I believe it was actually confirmed 2 days ago at the opening statements, but I just didn't notice it. So there was rumors for the last year that Rosenbaum, the first person, the pedophile who was also the first person that Kyle shot, there were some rumors that Rosenbaum was carrying a chain at one point that night. The state prosecutors have characterized Rosenbaum as being unarmed. The media has characterized him as being unarmed. That's been the growing narrative. But there was some rumors early on that there was images somewhere of Rosenbaum carrying a chain. Now, I didn't notice this, and it wasn't verbally stated, which is why I was mostly listening to the case, so that's probably why I didn't pick up on it. But apparently during the opening statements, there was a image of Rosenbaum holding a chain, which where he got that chain is a whole other set of events. It's a whole chain of events, actually. And today it was verbally, this is, we're still covering yesterday. We're still covering day 2, the end of day 2. So yesterday it was confirmed by Detective Martin that yes, Rosenbaum was indeed holding a chain at some point that night. However, he was not holding a chain at the time that Kyle shot him. I don't care. Let's see here. They watched a video they discussed a person named BG on the scene, which I believe is probably a screen name or like a radio name, as I have. I'm guessing that this is a streamer. I wasn't entirely sure who they were talking about, though I'm assuming that they'll bring up additional context about him later. Again, this is Kyle's defense attorney talking to Detective Martin about BG on the scene, who is a person. The detective, this person, the reason why we're thinking this is a streamer is because the detectives had him in custody on marijuana possession. And then at some point, Detective Martin entered the room and then left the room with a video of certain situations that may or may not be damning to Kyle. And then BG on the scene was not charged with marijuana possession. The reason why this is interesting is because you're supposed to charge on individual crimes. So like if you get arrested or taken into custody for multiple reasons, for multiple allegations, each allegation or charge needs to be handled individually. You can't, the police and detectives and the city and the state, they're not supposed to mix these things together, though they regularly do. But either way, it's illegal for them to do that. And so the Kyle's defense attorney brought up that it was strange that did you, Detective Martin, did you offer him leniency on this marijuana possession charge in exchange for him giving you a copy of that video? And Detective Martin obviously said no. And the Kyle's defense attorney asked, is it common for you to release people from marijuana charges? And I can't exactly remember what Detective Martin said, but it wasn't really convincing. I think that probably a jury which is paying attention would probably notice that there's some odd things going on with Detective Martin, that perhaps he is trying to pin the perp and isn't looking to find the evidence, that perhaps Detective Martin has a preconceived notion of where this trial is going, where his case that he was investigating is going, and that Detective Martin is only looking for evidence that supports his preconceived notion, and he's not looking for any other evidence, and he's willing to do anything to get evidence that supports his preconceived notion about it. Now, that wasn't stated explicitly, but I think that the defense attorney is starting to build at least the implication of that there's some amount of bias with Detective Martin, and any amount of bias, if that can be shown to the jury, then that calls into question the entire testimony of Detective Martin. Let's see here. They end day 2 with more review of the FBI aerial footage. They describe the lock-on mechanic of the camera. So up on the screen that you guys can see right now, you can see there's a little yellow box, and then there's a yellow crosshairs right next to it. So what was described in court, just for the benefit of the jury and for us viewing here at home, the crosshairs is a cursor that the FBI would have been able to have direct control of up in the air. So they're flying in a plane at about 9,000 feet, and they would have had a screen in front of them with a view of their camera, their infrared camera that was on probably the belly of the plane. They would have had a mouse or some way of controlling the cursor, and when they clicked on an object or they clicked on a portion of the screen, the camera has some smarts in it, and it can lock on to whatever you've clicked on. And even though the plane's maneuvering and flying around, it'll keep that camera lens pointed at that location. That's how you're probably very familiar with drone footage. Now, this wasn't a drone. This was a manned aircraft, but it's the exact same type of camera, exact same kind of concept, where drone cameras, even though they're up there flying around doing maneuvers and all that sort of stuff, their viewing angle is stable because it's self-stabilizing. There's some kind of AI script that's locking on to movement, and it'll follow it, and that way you don't have to be real good with the joysticks as a human trying to control that camera. The AI is doing it for you. So that's just to describe how this camera is able to maintain consistent framing. Now, what I think's interesting here, and this has not been explored or discussed, but what I think is interesting is you can see right now where the camera is locked on at. It's locked onto that square, and that square is smack dab in the center of the parking lot where Kyle first shoots Rosenbaum. Now, you might notice that there's some circles over to the right of the screen. We're gonna watch this whole video, probably about 10 minutes or so, and I don't need to explain what's going to go on in this video because the defense attorney is going to do it for me. So we'll get to that here in maybe about 20 more minutes or so. So what's interesting to me about this image, though, is that the FBI, this is probably about 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds before Kyle's ends up shooting Rosenbaum, maybe 10 to 20 seconds. It's not long before, but it is before. It is before Kyle shoots Rosenbaum. It's before Rosenbaum even starts chasing Kyle, actually. So from the sky, the FBI had the entire city of Kenosha to look at. There was riot going on over most of the city. And for some reason, the FBI thought that this particular property was the most interesting thing that they could see for an infrared from 9,000 feet in the air. Why did they why that was very prescient of them. I mean, they weren't wrong. Perhaps they were 15 seconds early. But it is interesting to me that they found this particular property to be the most interesting thing to look at from 9,000 feet in infrared during a citywide riot. Why this block? Why not the one next to it or the one 3 blocks north of it? I don't know. I'm not alleging any kind of precognition or anticipation or some kind of setup that they knew they were going to trick Kyle. Somehow Rosenbaum was a FBI agent and they knew they were going to trick Kyle into shooting him in 15 seconds from now. So that's why they've got it so squared up. I'm not alleging that at all. I'm not even pretending to allege that. I'm really not. But it is just interesting to me that of all the places that they could have had their camera locked onto, this is where they had it locked onto. And 15 seconds later, the most interesting thing that night happened perfectly centered. In fact, the exact location of the shooting is probably, you can see to the left of that yellow square, there's a grouping of cars. That grouping of cars is where the shooting will take place. I mean, from the sky, it wasn't just the particular property that they were able to pick out 15 seconds in advance. They were within like 10 feet of the most interesting point in space that night in Kenosha. I don't know. I don't know why. My guess is just that possibly that was a larger commotion than other areas. Perhaps other areas had calmed down, though I don't know because there was fires raging other places that night. But for whatever reason, the FBI pilots thought that this was the most interesting spot in Kenosha, and they clicked on it, and 15 seconds later, it was definitely the most interesting spot in Kenosha that night. Let's see here. There was, after they reviewed this footage, which I'm going to go a little bit into day 3, and then we'll come back to this video. So the end of the day was a question from the Kyle's defense attorney. I can't exactly remember what the question was, but the state objected to it. There was some commotion about that, and then the judge decided to break for the day, and they would revisit it in the morning. And when they came back to it, so now we're on to day 3. So that was today. So we started off day 3 with a dismissal of a juror. I'm bringing up Jack Posobiec's tweet because I think it's funny that my independent analysis and commentary lined up with Jack Posobiec here. So I'm putting up on the screen the notes that I wrote just because I'm so proud of myself. So Jack Posobiec tweeted out, a juror has been removed from the Kyle Rittenhouse case for being a stupid idiot. And then I wrote the very first line of me watching today, the very first line I wrote before I read Jack Posobiec's tweet. I independently wrote, starts the day off with dismissing a juror who made a joke to a sheriff. Fucking idiot. So Jack and I came to the exact same conclusion about this juror. Now, what was this juror's joke? Well, the juror's joke to a sheriff who was assisting him into the parking lot was that, why did the Kenosha police only shoot Jake Blake 7 times? Because they didn't have time to reload, was the response to the joke. Is it funny? I'll let you decide. Was it appropriate to be making a joke about that to a sheriff while you're a juror for a case related to the thing you're making a joke about? No! You fucking idiot. Shut your fucking mouth. There was another juror who was part of the initial pool of 40 who was dismissed because he said that he didn't think he could be unbiased because he believed in the Second Amendment, which is that's the stupidest thing you could say. Why would you think that believing in the Constitution would make you biased in a case, make you unable to be unable to be objective? Somebody who believes in the Constitution is the most unbiased person on a jury. And so you've got these people who have these beliefs, and that's why I said back on the first day of analysis, our jury selection process filters out people who come to opinions, to conclusions about things, people who critically think about things, people who are informed about current events, people who have political opinions one way or the other. It filters out to the NPCs, the most unformatted NPCs who don't critically think about anything, who've never come to a hardline conclusion on anything. They don't have any convictions or opinions that they feel strongly about. They aren't aware of current events. The jury process tries to pare it down to the most NPC unthinking dullard that they can find, the 12 most unthinking dullards they can find in the city, which is not really a great way to run the system. I don't, again, I said this a while ago, I don't have a better system proposed. I just think that there's some problems in the way that we do that, because I'm not really sure that a jury of people who don't think about things are Kyle's peers. I don't think that a group of people who aren't aware of current events are Kyle's peers. Kyle obviously was aware of current events, but that's why he was out there that night. Kyle obviously believes in the Constitution. That's why he didn't respect a law infringing his right to keep and bear arms. He followed the Constitution, not the law. I think that a jury of Kyle's peers would involve people who are Kyle's peers are other people who are informed on current events. Kyle's peers are people who believe in the Second Amendment. So this guy who said, "Oh, well, I don't think I can be unbiased because I believe in the Second Amendment." Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your fucking mouth. If you are in a jury pool and you're being asked questions, you do not lie. Answer the questions that are asked, but don't volunteer information. Don't answer questions they didn't ask. Don't try to be a show-off about, "Oh, I'm more conservative than you." That guy was virtue signaling. He was virtue signaling how conservative he was, because he's like, I believe in the Constitution so much, I don't think I could be a juror. Like, jury process is... I could be entirely mistaken here, but I'm pretty sure jury process is described in the Constitution. So I'm sure I'll be fact checked on that very quickly in chat if I'm wrong on that. But this idea that, "Oh, well, I believe in the Constitution, so I'm not going to be a good juror." No, shut your mouth. That wasn't the question that was asked. Don't volunteer additional information. And if you do get yourself on the jury, if you make it through that first process, don't make fucking political jokes, you fucking idiot. You absolute moron. Obviously, that guy had a bias in favor of Kyle, given that he was making fun of Jacob Blake, somebody who is absurdly deserving of being made fun of. Absolutely. But don't throw it away. Now Kyle is worse off. Kyle has, because that idiot made a joke about Jacob Blake, Kyle is now more likely to go to prison. Is he for sure going to go to prison? I don't know. But is he more likely today to go to prison because that juror was dismissed than he was yesterday when that juror was on the whatever the thing the jury sit on, when he was on the bench? Yes, Kyle is much more likely to go to jail today. Is that going to throw him over the edge? I doubt it. But Kyle's more likely to go to jail today because that guy couldn't keep his fucking mouth shut. You people out there listening, you are critical thinkers. You're aware of current events. you have formed opinions, you have thought about things critically and come to conclusions about them, you are a group of people who are my peers. You are the peers of Kyle. You are the peers of other people like you. Do not ruin it for them if you are selected for a jury by over answering questions you weren't asked, by virtue signaling how conservative you are and that you might be biased, by making jokes about the case or a related case. You fucking idiot. Not you guys, but that guy. Don't ruin somebody's life because you can't keep your mouth shut and stay calm. Hopefully if you guys get selected for a jury, you guys make it through and are able to be a peer to somebody like you. And hopefully if you ever need a jury of your peers, they are actually your peers and it's not a jury of NPCs. I would hope that someone like you guys who are out there engaged, looking at content, coming to conclusions about stuff, I would much rather have you guys as a jury of my peers. My peers, I would not feel that I was getting a fair trial if my quote-unquote peers were a bunch of unthinking NPCs who've never thought critically about things and never come to firm conclusions about them and didn't have any political opinions. That's not a jury of my peers. My peers are people who think critically. All right. So day one, so they started off with dismissing this idiot juror. And so now we're down to 19 jurors. As I said on Monday, the way Wisconsin does it is they have a 20-person jury pool that they start with at the beginning of the trial. As events like this happen and they have to release people, they do. And then final jury selection of the final 12 people who will vote on the verdict, that's selected after the trial. So we don't know if this guy who was released, if he had stayed the whole time. We don't know if he would have been one of the 12. It's possible he would have been. It's possible he wouldn't have been. Now he definitely won't be. But as of right now, he was equally not quite equally. He was proportionally likely to be or not be part of the 12-person jury that would vote on the verdict here. All right, let's see here. So the trial starts back up. Oh, the thing that the prosecutor objected to the previous day, Kyle's defense attorney says, you know what, we're not going to ask the question anymore. We'll just drop it. It's okay that you objected to it. We won't challenge it. So Kyle's defense attorney picks back up with examining Detective Martin Howard and starts asking again about the warrant for Gage's phone. As we just talked about, Gage had a phone out. Detective Martin had described earlier yesterday that he could get any phone that he wanted, and for some reason he just didn't want Gage's phone, even though there was a lot of information on Gage's phone that probably would have exonerated Kyle. Let's see here. After, again, what would be on that phone, which I just already went through, the state continues cross-examining. So Kyle's defense attorney kind of rests their case after they talk about this warrant thing again. The state picks back up with examining Detective Martin again. It is interesting that the detective said that he considered Gage to be a victim. Which is not proven yet because Kyle's defense was self-defense, which means that Gage was potentially an assailant, not a victim. But the detective is characterizing Gage as a victim, and they're treating him as such. That was part of the reason why the detective said that he didn't want to, copy Gage's phone because he didn't want to harass a victim, basically, which is ridiculous. Because Gage is not a victim, even to the extent that, again, we talked about this yesterday and the day before, the judge said that the state is not allowed to refer to Rosenbaum, Anthony, or Gage as victims because it's not been proven that they're victims yet. As of right now, they are assailants. Let's see here. The Detective Martin testified that Rosenbaum was the only person being chased in the video that we're going to watch here shortly, which is ridiculous because it's clear that Rosenbaum is the one chasing. And so I don't know why, I don't know. It's clear that, actually, Actually, I might actually play this bit too. There was another funny bit after they were the defense rolling back a little bit in time here. So Kyle's defense attorney first speaking to Detective Martin at the beginning of today, after he kept pushing on why did Detective Martin Howard not want to get a copy of Gage's phone. Again, Detective Martin had already elaborated multiple times that he could get anybody's phone that he wanted. He just didn't want Gage's phone for some reason. And the reason why is because he saw Gage as a victim and didn't want to harass a victim. And Kyle's defense attorney looks at the state prosecutor and goes, I see the state prosecutor here nodding. Did he coach you to say that? Did you coordinate with him between yesterday and today? Have you been coordinating with him before the trial? And the detective was like, no, I definitely wasn't doing that. And it really seemed to have spooked him. And the state prosecutor did not like that line of questioning either. Now, does Kyle's defense attorney know something, or is this just a bluff? I'm not sure. I know that there are tactics like this where you, as a lawyer, will bluff that you're aware of a situation just to see what the response is. That, you know, if I bluff to you that I know that you did something wrong, maybe you'll be like, oh, crap, I got caught. And I'll be like, ha, I didn't really know that you did something wrong, but now I do. And maybe you'll call my bluff and say, no, I didn't do that. So I think it might have been a bluffing tactic. I'm not sure, but it was certainly a exciting moment. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, and like I said, there's another kind of sub story here about the other detective. So Detective Martin has a partner who has a long, unpronounceable Wisconsin name. There is kind of a side story developing that the other detective, the mayor of Kenosha, and the city attorney for Kenosha all have the exact same last name because they're all related to each other. And I will probably be covering that story on Saturday since it's related to the case, but really this series of videos is really more about the case and what's going on in the case and less so about what's going on outside the case. So maybe Saturday I'll cover kind of the wider context on that. Let's see here. I had some thoughts while watching this that Detective Martin had described that he was out the night of the shooting in an unmarked car. He and other detectives and other police officers were out and about in the crowd that night in undercover and in unmarked cars. And you also had the FBI doing overwatch surveillance with their fixed-wing aircraft, taking infrared video footage of somehow the most interesting location in Kenosha. And so I keep hearing all day today, all day yesterday, all these stories about all of these law enforcement officers from all sorts of different levels just watching the riots, just watching the city get burnt down, watching Antifa and Black Lives Matter attack people, destroy their property, attack the courthouse, and everybody's just watching. Detective Martin's watching. He testified that he was watching. And the FBI, clearly they were watching because they've got a video of it. And I didn't realize that the point of law enforcement was to merely watch laws be broken. I thought some of that was the enforcement part of it, right? Maybe we should call them law. I didn't really think of a quip for this, but there must be some other wording to call them if they're just watching instead of enforcing the law. They're lawbreaker watchers. There we go. But they're certainly not enforcing anything. And so I think maybe calling them law enforcement is stretching the definition a little bit now. But I just, again, this fits into things I've been reiterating the last couple of days here, which is the state government, the city government, the county government, the state government, the American government had abandoned Kenosha to anarchy that night. There was no laws that night. They abandoned the citizens to anarchy and to the violence of the Democrat National Party's militant wing of Antifa and BLM. And then the next morning when the sun comes up, they decide, well, we're going to judge Kyle by the laws that are now in effect this morning, even though there was no laws in effect last night. We had abandoned Kyle to the tender mercies of a pedophile rapist, a wife beater, and a serial felon. We had abandoned Kyle to the tender mercies of these felons. And we weren't going to stop them at the time, but because we weren't really particularly satisfied with how Kyle chose to deal with those, even though we were supposed to be the ones defending him and enforcing the law, we weren't particularly happy with how he chose to defend himself. So now the state's going to prosecute him. That is that is ridiculous. Somebody in chat says that perhaps instead of law enforcement, we could call them anarchy voyeurists. Perhaps. So again, you've got this state who is content to watch their citizens be, harassed is an easy way of putting it. A state government that is fully content with just watching their citizens be harassed and violence against them. And then if those citizens decide to fight back a little bit, well, they'll come get them the next morning and make sure that they're sorry that they ever did that. It's interesting that the FBI footage, with all of the crimes that went on those 3 days, the FBI footage has only been used against Kyle. You would think that maybe some of that FBI footage would be useful against some of the rioters. And again, like I said, I think it's interesting that the FBI had a plane over Kenosha that night. Why Kenosha? Why not the other places that were, there was 100 cities that were on fire all summer long. Why didn't the FBI have surveillance airplanes over those cities? Well, I think they probably did. I think Kenosha was not the first city that they had deployed a surveillance craft over. And I'm betting the FBI has hundreds to thousands of hours of infrared aerial footage of every city that burned in 2020. And are they using that footage to prosecute the rioters? No. What have they used that footage for? Do you know how much money it costs you, the taxpayer, to put an FBI infrared camera bird in the air? It probably costs you $1 million a pop, if not substantially more. And what are they using that footage for? Well, they're not using that footage to prosecute people who were attacking you, the citizen, the business owner, the family. No, they're using it to attack. The FBI is using that to go after political enemies of the Biden administration. They're using it to go after people who had the audacity to fight back and defend themselves. It is absolutely outrageous. The FBI should be disbanded. That has been my mantra for 2 years now, and this only adds to a mountain of evidence, which I'm not going to really go through all here tonight. Just that is my opinion that the FBI should be disbanded. There is no redeeming qualities about it anymore. And the more and more that we learn about the FBI, such as this situation, the more I believe in that. So we continue on day 3 with my favorite witness that is going to be called, which is Richie Mcginnis. Richie Mcginnis was called to testify on the stand today, and I will be covering this either tomorrow or another day because I was only able to watch through part of Richie's testimony, and I would like to watch through both sides of it, both the state questioning him and Kyle's defense questioning him, so I can bring you the full thing. So I'm gonna hold off on that. And then I've also become aware on my way home today through various social media postings that there was a witness after Richie that apparently had some explosive testimony that was very, very exciting. I haven't seen that yet. Possibly you have, or possibly you've seen clips of it. I'm sure I will see clips of it before I watch it in full. But that will, I'm sure, be very interesting to watch through as well. All right. So as promised, so I was a little bit of a quicker update tonight, partially because my tooth fell out and also because I did not have time to do a lot of watching today. As promised, we are going to watch through the end of day 2, where this is the FBI newly released FBI aerial footage. It is in infrared. That's why it's got the black and white on it. And this is Kyle's defense attorney going through the points of this video with Detective Martin. And so during this, they're going to explain like who's each of these circles, who do they represent, what's kind of the sequence of events, and it's a pretty interesting exchange. We'll watch through it, and I don't know if I'll have any commentary over top of it, but we'll just see where they go, and that'll be it for the update tonight.
Cars, Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
This stop. This blue circle between what I would say the second and third row of cars, Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
This red is Mr. Zeminski, green Mrs.
Yes.
White Kyle.
Yes.
And Richie Mcginnis is to the left of the television screen, correct?
To the right.
In pink.
To the right of the television screen.
To the right. Sorry. Roll it, please. Stop. As Kyle, the white circle, comes to the Duramax, this individual, Mr. Rosenbaum, begins to come out of his hiding place.
Yes, he comes around the vehicle at that time.
And he's masked,
Yes.
and he comes around, roll. Stop. Blue, again, Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
And now you begin with the chase, Mr. Rosenbaum of Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
Correct.
Stop, not yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this looks like a classic ambush.
I'm going to object this to the calling for the defendant's interpretation of things. The jury can make their own decision as to what the...
Sustained.
Okay. Mr. Rosenbaum is in hiding as my client arrives, correct?
It appears so, yes.
My client gets to this side of the Duramax, which would be the far side from Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Can you repeat that, please?
My client comes to the far side of the Duramax from Mr. Rosenbaum.
On the opposite
correct?
side of Mr. Rosenbaum, yes.
And his circle, my client is stationary, and his circle is closing on my client's circle, Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
Correct.
And according to this video, which we don't have sound because it's from 9,000 feet, this is right about the time where Kyle yells, "Friendly, friendly."
Friendly, friendly, friendly.
Yes.
Yes.
And it does not dissuade Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
Roll the tape. Stop. Kyle goes out into the road, goes back into the car source lot with him, meaning Mr. Rosenbaum, following, correct?
Correct.
Where's
I'll roll back here just so you guys can hear it kind of in continuity. But just to clarify, there was again, it's hard to pull out individual snippets of this when I'm not stringing all the pertinent parts back together. That takes a lot of editing time that I don't have time to do when I'm watching all of this all day, and then I'm immediately jumping into streaming, and I don't have a team behind me doing all of the legwork like certain other commentators are fortunate enough to have. But basically, just to set the stage for you, what we saw at the beginning of the video was Rosenbaum was hiding behind those 4 cars in the bottom right corner of the lot. Kyle ran past the cars. Rosenbaum came out from behind the cars after Kyle. There's another video where you can see in here, there's actually multiple videos where you can see Rosenbaum running out from behind the car. You can also see that in the aerial footage, coming after Kyle. Kyle yells, "Friendly, friendly, friendly," 3 times. Trying to convey to Rosenbaum that Kyle's there to help. He's not there to attack. He's not a danger to Rosenbaum. And then, as you heard the defense attorney say, after Kyle yelled "friendly, friendly, friendly," that did not dissuade Rosenbaum from chasing him. So Kyle tries to disarm the situation by saying, "friendly, friendly, friendly." Rosenbaum doesn't agree, chases him. Kyle flees for his life. And that's where you can see we're picking back up. Again, Rosenbaum is the blue circle, which is a little bit hard to see on this. Why is it hard to see on this? Because the FBI, quote unquote, lost the HD footage of the event. Ridiculous. All right, let's go. We'll go back a few seconds here, and we'll continue watching.
Stop. Kyle goes out into the road, goes back into the car source lot with him, meaning Mr. Rosenbaum, following, correct?
Correct.
Where's Mr. Zeminski in this?
He's on the sidewalk. It's going to be just north of the blue circle, and that's going to be going right, from left to right on that screen. No, the other direction. To the right of the blue circle on that screen.
Okay, so right here?
No, to the right of the blue
Right
circle,
here?
yes.
Exactly. I mean, almost directly behind Kyle to the side of Mr. Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Okay, roll. Stop. This is Mr. Mcginnis. I'm
Yes.
pointing. This is Mr. and Mrs. Zeminski.
Yes.
She's very identifiable because she's got a big backpack on her back.
Yes.
Continue. Stop. This does not depict the shot, correct?
I think this appears to be just before.
Okay. Continue. You don't see the flash of Mr. Zeminski's gun in the thermal, correct?
I did not see it, no.
Okay. But we know from other videos, there's one a sound and two a flash.
Yes, in multiple videos, yes.
Mr. Zeminski didn't come forward and complain about my client's behavior that day, correct?
Correct.
He didn't come forward and complain and say that I had to shoot him to scare him or something like that, correct?
He did not come forward, correct.
And after my client shoots Joseph Rosenbaum 3 times in 76 hundredths of a, excuse me, 4 times, 4 shots in 76 hundredths of a second, the Zeminskis, when that shooting is going on, they don't run away, they don't hide.
It was 76 tenths of a second.
76.
We're gonna do a little bit of a math check there because it was 76 hundredths of a second. The defense attorney is correct. What's that? The defense attorney is correct. It was 76 hundredths of a second, or 0.76 seconds. 76 tenths of a second would be 7.6 seconds. So this guy is an idiot. He can't do math, and he doesn't know what his own testimony is. But I'll let him continue.
Yes.
To scare him or something like that, correct?
He did not come forward, correct.
And after my client shoots Joseph Rosenbaum 3 times in 76 hundredths of a, excuse me, 4 times, 4 shots in 76 hundredths of a second, the Zeminskis, when that shooting is going on, they don't run away, they don't hide.
It was 76 tenths of a second.
76 tenths.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me. The Zeminskis don't run away and hide. They're not afraid of the gunshots, correct?
Correct.
And they stay right there and they start yelling. Mr. Zeminski still has his gun out. And Mrs. Zeminski starts yelling about get him, things like that about Kyle, correct?
Correct.
The mob is closing in on Kyle.
There are multiple people closing in on Kyle.
Okay.
Mr. Rittenhouse.
And that's, I apologize, Mr. Rittenhouse. And that's closing in on him at the car source parking lot, correct?
It appears that at the car source that people are coming towards Mr. Rosenbaum. And yes, there's people that are shouting in the direction of Mr. Rittenhouse. I'd say it's more clear once he starts running northbound that there are people following him.
Okay. But strike that. And you did the reconstruction with a stopwatch. You didn't do it a frame by frame.
Correct.
And at 1 minute into the Drew Hernandez video, which is number exhibit 19, you hear somebody yell at Kyle, "Get the fuck out of here," correct?
I don't recall hearing that.
Could it? I've got it at 1-0.
They're gonna play it here, so you'll be able to hear it yourself. But this is an important part because in the video you can hear somebody in the crowd yelling at Kyle, "Get the fuck out of here." The state is alleging that Kyle shot Rosenbaum, did not provide aid to him, even though he had no obligation to, and then fled the scene. What the actual video shows is that Kyle, after shooting Rosenbaum, went back to check on him, saw that there was other people providing aid to Mr. Rosenbaum, Mr. Pedophile, and then somebody in that crowd shouted to Kyle, "Get the fuck out of here." So after having looked to see, did Rosenbaum need aid? Was other people providing aid to him? Yes, check. Then somebody said, "Kyle, you got to get the hell out of here," and he did. So the state's sequence of events just isn't true. It's just not factual. It's not what's on video. We'll let this continue though.
It started at 50 seconds. At 50 seconds, please listen closely.
Put pressure on it! Put fucking pressure on it!
Where, dude? Where?
No. And Kyle then is running down Sheridan Road in a northerly direction.
Correct.
He, in all the videos you see, he doesn't point his firearm at anybody, correct?
At certain times, he points his firearms at people.
I asked a terrible question. It's late in the day. I apologize. As he's running down Sheridan Road in a northerly direction before event number 2, which is the shooting of the unidentified individual, Huber and Grosskreutz, you don't see him pointing the gun, doing any of this, menacing with the firearm to people around him, correct?
I believe there was just a slight raise when he was still on that west sidewalk of Sheridan Road, and it seemed like something west of him on 62nd Street caught his attention. I remember he turned to his left. There may have been a slight raise of the rifle at that point.
Didn't fire.
No, not at that point.
Gage Grosskreutz runs up on him.
Later on, yes.
As he's going down Sheridan Road. I mean, from the time Mr. Rosenbaum chases him till the time he turns himself into the police, or attempts to turn himself into the police at 60th and Sheridan Road, we're talking about less than 4 minutes, correct?
Yes.
He heads down Sheridan Road in a northerly direction. There might have been a slight raise. Something caught his attention to his left.
Yes.
Okay, does not fire.
Correct.
Heads down the road. Gage Grosskreutz, with his cell phone, gets right up in Kyle's face, correct?
Yes.
And says, "What are you doing? Did you just shoot that guy?"
I'm
Yeah.
going to object, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
It doesn't make an assertion. It asks a question. Hearsay is an assertion. But
You hear that question, correct?
Yes.
And my client says he's going to the police.
Objection, Your Honor. That is
It's a
hearsay.
statement of a party opponent for completeness.
It's not a statement.
He
of
put-
wait,
the defendant.
wait. Now, what was the question again?
What was my client's response to Mr. Grosskreutz? Mr.
Stop.
Okay.
And what was your objection?
Hearsay. The defense can't introduce the defendant's own statements.
It's not a statement of a party opponent.
he went into it under the doctrine of completeness. I said 2 grounds. I'll go with completeness, Your Honor. He went into the statement.
I'm so sorry. Judge, you said something. I'm say the name.
All right, I'm going to cut it off there because they'll go through kind of a windy legal discussion about what questions are allowed to be asked of a witness. They will ultimately decide that they will pick it back up the next morning, which was this morning. The discussion ultimately did not matter. Kyle's defense attorney decided to withdraw the question and no longer object to the objection. So all of the discussion back and forth about what is okay to ask this witness became irrelevant as of this morning. So we'll cut that off there. I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit briefer of an update. I hopefully will be able to talk again tomorrow if my tooth does not continue falling out. And we will talk about Richie Mcginnis's testimony along with whoever this unknown explosive witness was. Though I'm sure you will probably hear about him before I do. Thank you for joining me tonight. This has been Fox Reviews. Was our update on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, day 3. Thank you for joining, and I will see you again hopefully tomorrow, if not Saturday, for the weekly news recap. This is Fox Reviews.